QTV Nightly News coming to you from our studios on Kairaba Avenue, and I am Jules Denjai. Thank you for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. In a bid to promote technical and vocational education and training, TVET, the higher education ministries of the Gambia and China signed agreements on Friday to deepen educational exchanges and provide agricultural equipment for TVET centers in the Gambia. Now, a meeting was held between the Gambia and Senegal Armed Forces to update the community and the media after a 3-day joint security patrol around the Kir Ali border in the Gambia's North Bank region. The communications director of the Gambia Football Federation, Babukar Kamara, has called on the government to allocate a fixed budget to develop the country's sports infrastructure. In a bid to mitigate the effects of climate change, the Gambia Red Cross Society, through its local and international partners, launched climate-smart adaptability projects in the Gambia. And in international news, after defeating the Myanmar army and establishing control over much of the country, the Arakan army is now forcing the Rohingya people to flee their homes by using drones to bomb their villages, according to a UN report. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Thank you very much for staying with us. If you are just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now, in a bid to promote technical and vocational education and training, TVET, the higher education ministries of the Gambia and China signed agreements on Friday to deepen educational exchanges and provide high-quality agricultural equipment for TVET centers in the Gambia. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Under the agreement, China will help the Gambia in curriculum development, staff training, and provision of agricultural equipment and scholarships to Gambian students, amongst other benefits. Wang Weiping, head of the Chinese ministerial delegation, expressed appreciation for the meeting, saying Gambia and China have been good friends and partners for many years. The cooperation and exchanges in education, he added, will be an important feature of the cooperation of the two countries.
Continued reform, especially in areas like education and science, are an important aspect for Chinese modernization, as is vocational education. I want to share with you that the vocational education of Guangxi enjoys its unique advantages, and the courses are important in developing vocational education in the country. And China has 2 places for developing vocational education, one of which is in certain part of China, which is located in Guangxi, which is why Guangxi plays a very important role in this regard.
Wang Weiping calls on the two countries to collaborate to strengthen planning at the highest level by providing more policy guarantees. Professor Pierre Gomez, the Minister for Higher Education, says the two countries have been harnessing their cooperation in higher education and that this is a game changer.
Very soon, in the coming days and weeks, other Gambian students also will be leaving Banjul to go to different parts of China to study under the full scholarship of the People's Republic of China, just to promote, to some extent, education, harnessing their skills, and in different areas, different disciplines, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for that matter. This is a clear evidence of the true partnership, true friendship of these two countries.
The Gambia's higher education minister also stated that the ceremony is an indication of the readiness of the two countries to work together to promote technical and vocational education training and to give an alternative to the youths of the Gambia.
And also come up with the Gambia-Guangxi Alliance that is geared towards the promotion and development of TVET education in the Gambia. And yes, also coming up with the language training, but specifically the last item that you've talked about, that the digital education. This is the new norm. This is why China is changing the world. This is why China is second in the world. Very soon, around 2035, the world should not be surprised if China becomes #1, because it's anchored on education, it's anchored on digital education, it's anchored on human capital, and the Gambia wants to join that train. It's a train of development, and we want to work with China so that we will not miss that train. But we do that with our youths coming out to the table with their contribution with skills.
The event concluded with exchanges of gifts by representatives of both parties. For QTV News, I am Julden Yai.
Now, a meeting was held between the Gambia and Senegal armed forces to update the community and the media after a 3-day joint security patrol covering some 30 border villages around the Kir Ali border in the Gambia's North Bank region. Our regional correspondent, Don Williams, was at the meeting, and this is his report.
The 3-day joint security patrol follows the signing of a security agreement last year in Ziguinchor to strengthen cross-border surveillance and security. At the end of the exercise, a meeting at the GRA Ali border office was also attended by representatives from Senegal and the Gambia, including the village aides or alcalos. At the event, both the Gambia and Senegal flags were hoisted, representing unity. While the Senegalese military band played the two national anthems. Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim I. Krubali, commanding officer, 2 Infantry Battalion for Feni Barracks, explained how it all started.
For the first time in the history, Gambia Armed Forces joined with the Senegalese Armed Forces to conduct joint patrol along the borders to showcase togetherness, solidarity, and cooperation between the two countries. This joint patrol was initiated sometime last year when the two leadership of both armed forces converged in Ziguinchor to discuss ways and means of nurturing the existence bilateral cooperation between the two countries. We are witnessing today is the end of the joint patrol, which started on Tuesday as phase 1 of the agreed discussion. Sir, be kindly informed that over 30 villages within our two borders were patrolled by these gallant men and women in uniform.
The success of this joint patrol is stunning proof of our shared homeland. It shows colleagues that when faced with challenges, we are stronger than any boundaries. And I will also say the same in Wolof.
Lamin Sedi Khan, governor of the North Bank region, explained the importance of the gathering.
To foster collaboration, enhance security, and protect the lives and properties of our citizens. Together we aim to halt cross-border crimes and create a safer environment for all. Gambia and Senegal share more than just geographical proximity. Our commonalities run deep: ethnic, religion, culture, all woven in the fabric of our society.
Governor Sedi Khan further encouraged the men and women in uniform that the joint patrol signifies unity between the two nations and expressed gratitude to the Gambia's President Adama Barrow and Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal and the army commanders of both countries. Residents in NBR have welcomed the initiative, saying that the joint patrol will help strengthen cooperation, deter illegal activities and cross-border crime, thereby creating safer communities along our borders. Don Williams, QTV News for Afeni.
Now, the Communications Director of the Gambia Football Federation, Babukar Kamara, has called on the government to allocate a fixed budget to develop the country's sports infrastructure. He was speaking after the launch of the National Sports Policy 2024-2034, where the Minister of Youth and Sports was also present. Usman Jatta tells us more.
The Gambia is home to many talented and passionate sportsmen and women. However, over the years, many dreams have been shattered as a result of lack of encouragement, incentives, and inadequate sports infrastructure. The country does not have the up-to-date sports facilities to support sports development. Aside from football, the country hosts several other popular sporting disciplines, including basketball, volleyball, table tennis, athletics, karate, among others. The Communications Director of the Gambia Football Federation, Babukar Kamara, believes the government should allocate a fixed budget for sports infrastructure development.
I would call on the government to have a fixed percentage of the national budget, embedded for in the national budget for sports. At least, let's say 2-3% of the national budget. Put that into sport. Now, divide that into the 50% of it, use that to the federated sports, helping the national association to fund their activities, programs and activities. The other 50%, invest that into infrastructural development. In the next 5-10 years, you will have infrastructure across the length and breadth of this country.
On 22nd February 2022, the Confederation of African Football banned the hosting of international matches at the Independence Stadium for failing to meet the standard required to host football events. In a bid to meet the requirements from CAF, the government embarked on a $160 million renovation works at the Independence Stadium. At the time of this report, the stadium remains closed to international competition. The latest National Sports Policy 2024-2034 reiterates government's resolve to raise more resources to invest in sports infrastructure across the country. However, speaking at the same event, the Youth and Sports Minister Bakari Waibaji says the more the country spends participating in international events, the less infrastructure developments are possible.
If we are able to minimize our international participation and focus on developing the infrastructure, because it's one budget. That's where we get money to pay for development of infrastructure, at the same time to support associations when they write to us to say they want to go to this place to participate in an international competition. And so sometimes we struggle between what do we need to do. Is it deny them the money and use it to develop infrastructure, or give it to them to go? And the more you spend money on participation, the less you're able to do something at home.
The transfer fee paid for Gambia's most expensive footballer, Yankuba Minteh, is a clear testimony that sports can uplift lives. Minteh is breaking barriers and blazing a trail for other Gambian footballers by signing for English Premier League side Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. The GFF Communications Chief further emphasizes the benefits gained from building proper sporting infrastructure.
And once you have an injury, certain injuries can end your career. But if you have the proper infrastructure in place, this is going to help in the development of these talents. And these talents would not only play for Gambia and the national team and offer enjoyment and entertainment to the fans, but they will also become professional footballers and lift themselves and their families out of poverty. And that is why we have to start professionalizing even our domestic leagues.
The lack of proper sports infrastructure has contributed to poor performance of Gambian athletes at international competitions. This has forced several athletes to train outside the country. However, Minister Baji holds a different perspective on and solution to this.
But if we complain that we couldn't win because we are exposed to facilities that we were not used to back home, then you need to think twice. Do I continue to participate and not get medals because I'm not exposed to the kind of facilities I see there? Or do I use that money and develop the facility so that in the next 2-3 years, I'll be able to go out there and be able to do well? And our position as a ministry is that we need to invest more in the development of the infrastructure at home and minimize the participation with the hope that in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years, we would have had some adequate or at least reasonable facilities and be able to develop the talent locally. And we will have a pool of athletes where we can choose from to be able to send them to go and participate. And they will definitely do well because they are well trained at the country level.
From listening to the Youth and Sports Minister and the GFF Communications Post, it is clear that addressing these deficiencies requires a combined effort from government, sporting bodies like the GFF and the private sector. Osman Jata, reporting for QTV News.
That report there by Osman Jata will take us to a commercial break. When we return, we have local and international news stories for you. Do stay tuned.
Need a quick car service? Espas Motors has got you covered. From quick scans to oil changes and fuel filter replacements, we handle it all within an hour. Take advantage of our exclusive promotion with 35% off labor and 10% off service. Espas Motors is located at Bertil Harding Highway, opposite Kotu Power Station. Book now. Call 353-4444, 352-2222, 385-6822. Hurry. Offer ends September 7. Espas Motors.
Welcome to the future of transportation in the Gambia. The Bertil Harding Highway, a 22-kilometer double carriageway, is set to revolutionize travel and connectivity in our beloved country. The Bertil Harding Highway is transforming transportation in the Gambia with new roundabouts and vehicular overpasses. But safety must come first. Standing along the road or at roundabouts to flag down taxis creates unsafe conditions and unnecessary traffic jams. Remember, always board taxis at designated taxi garages or the garas located at major traffic points. Drivers stopping in no stopping zones will be penalized. Let's keep our roads clear and safe. Together, we can ensure a safe and efficient journey for all.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News, and now to the rest of our stories. Now, in a bid to mitigate the effects of climate change, which can cause floods and possible food insecurity, the Gambia Red Cross Society, through its local and international partners, launched climate-smart adaptability projects in the country. Usman Jata again.
We live in a time of an ever-increasing need for humanitarian responses, which far outstrip the resources available to respond to disasters and emergencies. In a new approach, the Gambia Red Cross Society is focusing on anticipatory actions to prepare for disasters before they happen. Abdullahi Fai, the Acting Secretary General of the Gambia Red Cross Society, explains his organization's latest simplified early action protocol on floods.
We have just recently developed our simplified early action protocol on floods, and this will be targeting more of Kanifi municipality, West Coast region, and North Bank region, because usually when there are floods, they are always affected. And of course, Banjul is always in our mirror to make sure that we monitor the developments because of the sea level rise that is happening.
The Gambia Red Cross Society has been actively working with local and international partners to complement government efforts in aid distribution, provision of medical services, among others. Despite the heavy rains recorded in July and early August of 2024, some parts of the country, especially rural Gambia, have not experienced sufficient rainfall, which could affect the harvest of their crops. Acting SG Fai explains how his team are closely working with partners to curb the possible effects of food insecurity in the country.
Because one thing that we have observed this year, there has been dry spells, of rains in the country. And even if you go to the rural areas, you will see some people, even the groundnuts, are not well grown and started bearing, flowers. That means, certainly the nuts may not be very good. And you even go to early millets. You can see only a few communities that you will see currently now, they are getting ready, but others are still struggling to grow.
In 2021, the North Bank region was the hardest hit area by the July windstorms, leading to loss of lives and destruction of several shelters. In a bid to establish a long-term solution to the country's changing climate pattern, the Gambia Red Cross has initiated a nationwide tree planting exercise. To achieve its goal, the organization partners with various village development communities through its home links of volunteers across the country.
We're trying to do as much as possible to look into mitigation and climate change adaptation activities. So tree growing is one thing that we have been doing as a whole. This is both in all parts of the country. If you monitor our interventions, you will see our volunteers in CRR, our volunteers in West Coast region, our volunteers in North Bank, and other parts of the country.
Increasing temperatures and rising sea levels, changing rainfall patterns and more extreme weather are threatening human health and safety, food and water security, and socio-economic development in Africa, according to a new UN report devoted exclusively to the continent. It is clear from speaking to the acting SG that the Gambia Red Cross, in working with partners, is making great strides to address many of these challenges. Osman Jata, reporting for QTV News.
The report there will take us to news beyond our borders in a moment. Now, after defeating the Myanmar army and establishing control over much of the country, the Arakan army is now forcing the Rohingya people to flee from their homes by using drones to bomb their villages, according to a UN report. Loli M. Kamara tells us more.
This fresh exodus of Rohingyas is adding to the plights of already overburdened Bangladesh, where 1 million Rohingya people are already living as refugees at different makeshift camps. The attacks, which have been ongoing for the past few weeks, have caused widespread panic and displacement among the already tormented Muslim minority group. According to a UN official, the Rohingyas fleeing from the violence are seeking shelter in neighboring Bangladesh. Thousands of them escaped by using dangerous boat journeys in search of safety and refuge. Following the coup, which ousted his predecessor, Bangladesh interim Prime Minister Muhammad Yunus said in his first major policy address on Sunday that his government would maintain support for the more than 1 million Rohingya refugees in the country. Meanwhile, the international community has condemned the violence against the Rohingya and called for action to protect their rights and safety. The Arakan Army, one of the armed groups seeking to overthrow the junta, has seized large areas of Rakhine State from the military in recent months. The militia and Myanmar's military blamed each other for the attack. Activists say they believed the Arakan Army was responsible, allegations the group denied. On 11 November 2019, the Gambia, on behalf of the 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, filed a case at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, alleging that Myanmar failed to fulfill its obligations to prevent and punish acts of genocide committed against the Rohingya in Rakhine State as required under the Genocide Convention. Following Myanmar's denial, President Adama Barrow, as chair of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, has approved for the Gambia to file a reply brief to the International Court of Justice. The Gambia's reply emphasized to the court the substantial volume of reliable and credible evidence that confirms that Myanmar is responsible for the commission of acts of genocide against members of the Rohingya group in Myanmar. The Rohingya are a Muslim minority in Myanmar, a majority Buddhist state in which 90% of the population consider themselves Buddhist. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
Also in international news, a manhunt is on the way in western Germany after a man wielding a knife killed at least 3 people and several others injured in the city of Zolligan. Rohi Samba tells us more.
What was meant to be a community festival celebrating cultural diversity has instead turned to tragedy. The knife attack happened at a festival in Solingen, in western Germany. According to the police, the incident happened when thousands had gathered at a central square for celebrations to mark Solingen's 650th anniversary. The dead include 1 woman and 2 men. Ironically, Solingen is called the City of Blades, since it has long been renowned for the manufacturing of fine swords and knives. Both survivors of the attacks and witnesses are being questioned. Police in the nearby city of Düsseldorf said in a statement early on Saturday, in what is still a developing story, police warned residents who observe anything suspicious activity not to act on their own initiative but to call the police emergency number. The Interior Minister of North Rhine-Westphalia State, Herbert Reul, visited the scene early on Saturday, telling reporters it was a targeted attack on human life but declining to speculate on the motive. Fatal stabbings and shootings in Germany are relatively uncommon. A police officer was killed and 5 people were wounded in a knife attack in May. At the time of this broadcast, Germany police announced the arrest of 1 person in connection with the attack. Reporting for QTV News, I am Rahisamba.
Unfortunate incident there. Well, this is all we got time for, but before we end this bulletin, here's the recap of the headlines. In a bid to promote technical and vocational education and training, TVET, the higher education ministries of the Gambia and China signed agreements on Friday to deepen educational exchanges and provide agricultural equipment for TVET centers in the Gambia. Now, a meeting was held between the Gambia and Senegal Armed Forces to update the community and the media after a 3-day joint security patrol around the Kir Ali border in the Gambia's North Bank region. The communications director of the Gambia Football Federation, Babukar Kamara, has called on the government to allocate a fixed budget to develop the country's sports infrastructure. In a bid to mitigate the effects of climate change, the Gambia Red Cross Society, through its local and international partners, launched climate change smart adaptability projects in the country. In international news, after defeating the Myanmar army and establishing control over the much of the country, the Arakan army is now forcing the Rohingya people to flee from their homes by using drones to bomb their villages, according to a UN report. Well, this is all we got time for. Do join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. for the Weekend Review with Ade Drami and Momodu Boch. Thanks for watching.